Welcome to Verses and Visions Creative Conversations, where creativity and purpose meet to inspire and uplift. I'm Cassidy Beck, your host, here to explore the stories of artists, dreamers, and changemakers who are walking in faith and using their unique gifts to make a difference. Each episode is a reminder that your vision, paired with God's purpose, can transform the world around you. Let's get started and spark some inspiration together. Welcome to the podcast Verses and Visions. Today, I'm thrilled to be welcoming Philip G. White. Philip G. White is an award-winning author of science fiction, fantasy, and biblical fiction. He won 2 Spark Boards from LDSPMA Conference and 2 honorable mentions from the prestigious Writers of the Future contest. He loves worlds, both past and future, magical and technological, and he doesn't mind when it all mixes together. Philip lives in Utah with his supportive wife, 5 children, and 2 energetic dogs named Anakin and Padme. So, Philip, I'm excited to be able to talk to you today. I actually just finished Silent Earth. It's awesome. I was curious, what first sparked your interest in writing Silent Earth?
Silent Earth was actually a project that happened during COVID. With all the kids being home, I figured let me introduce them and get them writing more. And so I'd gotten a story prompt book that had a bunch of prompts in it. And I'm like, okay, we're going to write a short story, just a little thing every day. And we did one story. My 2 girls wrote one, and I wrote one. I put it up on my website. It's much shorter. But then, and that was like written in one day. And I'm like, what would be different if I spent a little bit longer on it? And so I spent 2 or 3 days brainstorming, plotting out the next one, and then wrote it. And it was Silent Earth. And it went through a lot of revisions before the published version of that short story. But it was written in about a week of the first draft. And it was just like, I've always seen other kinds of stories, but I wanted it to be a really personal story because I couldn't address like big kind of things like here's how they're going to get home or things like that, but I could address character moments. And so that was my exercise for that short story.
It was interesting because I don't like to do spoilers, but it's hard to talk about it without doing a lot of spoilers. There was a moment in it where there's like a period of 6 years. And I was like, oh, there's a lot that happens during those 6 years. Have you thought about in your mind those things that have happened?
Yep, I have. And I've had a lot of people when they have read it, they're like, and what happens? And I'm like, I have thoughts. I have thoughts on here's what caused the Earth to go silent, and here's what was going on Earth when we got to that climax point in the story. And I just haven't sat down and outlined it out and tried to write the other half. It's on the back burner a long ways. I have other projects that I want to get to first. But yeah, I have thought about it.
So I know you usually have several projects that you're working on. Tell us about your works in progress right now.
So I'm working through a second draft of an epic fantasy, and it's called Shadows of Light, and it is my first completed novel. Its second draft needs more work than normal, I think. But it's progressing great. I'm 50% of the way through its second revision, and I'm loving it. The other book that I'm working on is called Escape from Jerusalem, and it's a narrative retelling of Nephi and Lehi as they escape from Jerusalem. And this one I feel like is going a lot smoother. It's also going to be a lot shorter. Shadows of Light is epic fantasy, and so it has a length to match it. It's 800 pages long.
Wow.
But Escape from Jerusalem, I'm targeting more like 300 pages, more of a normal size novel. And so it's progressing great. I'm 50% of the way through the first draft, and I feel really confident about it, about that first half. And the first chapters on both of those works are what won the Spark Awards at LDSPMA.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. And I think one thing I noticed, I was looking at your website and it's really cool. You have a real-time update with your revisions, which I haven't seen before. I think that's really cool. And congratulations on getting your first draft done. It's really hard to get all the ideas on the paper, and then revising is one talent, but then getting them all together and somewhat organized is a huge feat. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I would agree that there's a certain degree of when you finish the first draft, you've learned so much, and it's not just the first draft, but I think the first draft of the first novel.
Mm.
As an author, you change so much over the course of that book, which is why I've been doing a lot of revisions on Shadows of Light. But the growth that happens is honestly amazing, not only in your skill level, but for me, it was like in the way that I think about other people and think about them as having a part of them that I can't see because I've tried to go into those kinds of characters or go into other characters in the book and try to think about what are their motivations and that my characters can't see. And you don't start thinking about that until you are trying to inhabit a dozen or more people. So
That's a really good point. I think that's absolutely true as well with our characters. We want to try and get to know them and what motivates them, and we want to make it to have an arc for them and how applicable that is to life as well. So, how long has it been since you started the first sentence of your first book till like it was completed draft?
so like every overnight success, it's been a really long time. Shadows of Light, I started 5 years ago, five, almost 6 years ago. There was a book before that I spent 10 years on, rewriting the first third of it over and over again. When I was like, okay, I really want to take my writing seriously, I can't do it with that book. I'm too close to it. I've been through too many iterations. I can't do it with that one. So I put that one aside. I don't know when I'm going to get back to that one, if ever. And I started on Shadows of Light and started doing all the things that I'd been learning at the same time while I was trying to learn even more. And so it's been 6 years of work on it, of outlining, writing a rough first little bit, and then scrapping it and rewriting it. Like I tried to do it during a NaNoWriMo and tried to just pound out 50,000 words. I made it about halfway and was like, yeah, this isn't working. I don't know where I'm going and the characters aren't working. So I scrapped 25,000 words and started over. But we're getting there now.
Yeah.
First draft's done and it's good.
So I really like, and I feel like one of the things I hear you saying is you're looking long term. You're looking for your long term progression and you're working on like really building this skill set, not necessarily for the next release, like in a month, but like it's okay if it takes a long time. I also heard you saying that you're using NaNoWriMo as a vehicle to help you with that. Can you tell us what that is?
NaNoWriMo it was called, it was National Novel Writing Month. It was an organization that helped pull authors together and give them a goal and a community where they would try to write 50,000 words, which is about the shortest a novel can be and be considered a novel, and write that in a month. It's the goals of NaNoWriMo was not to edit, not to make it good, just to get the first draft down. Unfortunately, the organization's had some issues and they've closed up. NaNoWriMo as an organization doesn't exist anymore.
I
But
didn't know that. That
closed
happened.
this last NaNoWriMo was the last one, I think. Apparently they've been running in a deficit for a while, and there was some unfortunate things going on in the forums that turned a lot of the community against them. So there was a lot of factors, and I'd encourage your readers, if they're interested, to go, or your listeners, to go look and see what happened. But for what it did at its core, I loved NaNoWriMo because it gave authors the permission to write badly, to just pound it out and not worry about it. And you learn a lot that way. That was, I got 25,000 words into Shadows of Light, and it was like, yeah, this isn't working, and I know why. But it would have taken me way longer than 2 or 3 weeks to figure that out if I hadn't been trying to write that fast.
Yes, and I did it. It was usually during the month of November because November is National Writers Month. And I think one of the things that was really cool about it is that it had your word count that you could update. And I feel like that is something that listeners could do on their own, like authors can
Yep.
do on their own, and it could be done during any month. It was neat to just have that accountability. I think there's an app that's available for updating your word counts.
And I would agree. And that's what I did was I started tracking that on my own was of here's how many words I wrote today. But it's also, I think if you wanted to have that accountability, that's a great thing to put on social media and build your awareness for you, what the work that you're doing as an author is like, here's how many words I did today.
That kind of leads me into I like to talk about imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's not. I feel like we do experience imposter syndrome, but maybe not with those words that like appeal to us. So my question for you is, do you ever have the inner voice that tells you like you're not enough? And even when you have evidence that tells you and shows you that you are?
Absolutely. There's, for me, it comes and goes. Most of the time, it's when it hits me, it's because something isn't working, whether it's I'm not making as much progress as I would like, I'm not meeting the goals that I've set for myself, or I've hit a particular spot in a story that's something isn't working here, and I haven't quite put my finger on what it is. And all that just goes into making me doubt my abilities. I think a lot of the time, the hardest part for me and what triggers it the most is I tend to set pretty ambitious goals for myself. I have high expectations for myself. And when I'm not meeting those expectations, that's when it hits me hardest. And this is one of the lessons that I've been trying to learn recently was life happens and I've got to let myself be okay with that. That even if I'm not getting my book edited as fast as I would like, that I haven't got it published after almost 6 years of working on it, ultimately I'm the work of art, not it. And I have to be okay with that.
I love that answer. And I feel like that particularly rings true that you're the work of art and not the thing that you're working on. And I think one of the things that's cool is like the part where you're like, this just isn't working. But I think that it's not working because the education and the knowledge that you've brought and the experience that you have. Whereas like a first time author is like, this is great, moving right along, and then goes right past that, the part that's not working out.
There's some definite truth to that, where the instincts of that as an author you build up over after having written enough words does kick in and be like, something isn't working here. I think that there's also a part of if you've read enough, you'll, as you're trying to write and translate, here's all the things that I've read into a story that I've created. I think that's the more dangerous one because when we're trying to work on our first novels, our first stories, we have all these books and everything that we've read, and they're so awesome, and we love them so much, and we see how good that they are, and we look at what we've written, and we're like, this is terrible. Something isn't working, but I have no idea what. And I think that's harder and more dangerous because that's where we get tempted to stop and give up. And that's the real imposter syndrome because it's anybody can write a story, anybody can create art from anything sometimes. Like we think about athletes and how much they practice, but we don't think about authors and artists practicing the same way.
Yeah. Hey, Verses and Visions family. If you're on a journey to bring your God given visions to life, whether you're an artist, entrepreneur, or simply someone ready to take the next steps towards your dreams, I've got something just for you. Join the Sage Verse Publishing newsletter. It's packed with encouragement, practical insights, and strategies to help you stay focused, overcome challenges, and build role momentum. Let's walk this path together. Sign up today at sageversepublishing.com because your vision matters, and I'm here to help you make it happen. Let's talk about the original soda beer's drink, apple beer. If you know, you know, and if you don't, well, you're in for a treat. Apple beer is a crisp, refreshing drink that's been a family favorite for generations. It's non-alcoholic, smooth, and packed with that perfect apple spice flavor. Whether you're sipping it solo or sharing it with friends, it's always a good time. It's more than just a drink. It's tradition. It's community, and it's about savoring the simple joys in life. So next time you're looking for something special, reach for an apple beer. Now available on Amazon. Cheers to good times and great conversations. That's a really good point. So, how do you have really high lofty goals for yourself and maintain high expectations for yourself while at the same time allowing grace for yourself when those aren't met?
That is a good question. This is the one that I've been learning on my own this last few months. So I'll tell a story. And this, I just sent out my first newsletter in 6 months because of this. In my newsletter in November, I had set a goal to try and finish the revisions for Shadows of Light in 1 to 2 months. I'm like, I just want to be done with this. I need to move on to Escape from Jerusalem and put some real focus on it. I still had 120,000 words that needed to be edited, which is an enormous amount of work. And my first mistake was overestimating my abilities. And I think that's a big part of when we have ambitious goals, have we set realistic goals? Like they're ambitious, but are they realistic? Me editing or rewriting 4,500 words a day was not realistic. And so as I went through and was trying to work on this through November and into December, I fell further and further behind where I wanted to be. For me, it was like the work got harder and I got more down on myself because I wasn't getting there. And then work hit. Like the day job that pays the bills, it hit and required my attention and it required my creativity. And for 3 months, I would come home just creatively exhausted. I did not have the ability to sit down and write very much during those 3 months because everything was going into the project that I was working on at work, which put me really far behind now. Not only had I blown past my goal, but I hadn't even continued working on it. And like I have a quote on my wall here that says, failure is not an option, failure is mandatory. The option is whether or not to let failure be the last thing you do. And I think that's one of the most important lessons is that failure is going to happen. And even when you're setting ambitious goals and you're not meeting them, try to think about, and this is what I did as I was putting my newsletter together was, what did I accomplish? And it actually looks pretty decent. Like I still managed to do revisions on 18 chapters out of the 50 and do a second round of revisions on about 9 chapters with feedback from my writing group. And so I'm really confident about those chapters. I feel really good about them. And I also managed to write another 5 chapters in Escape from Jerusalem. Yes, there was a break there where I just wasn't able to get anything done. That's the life part. And allowing grace to be like, I'm not perfect. I can't do it all. So what can I do when? And then recognizing, here's what I have done. Here's what I have accomplished. That helped me get back to it. It's okay. I still got stuff done. We're still progressing, not as fast as I would like. I'd like to be putting out a book every 6 months or so. That's not going to happen right now, and that's okay. That's not where I'm at in life. It's just understanding those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love those. And I feel like setting goals or like the realistic goals are really important. And it made me think of the acronym like to set SMART goals. And so that's like the SMART is specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. I like what you were saying about the goal that you had set was extremely ambitious, but not realistic
Yeah.
during this phase of your life where you have 5 kids all at home and you're providing for all of the people, including your dogs,
Yeah.
and that are all needing your time and attention.
Yeah. It's never going to be just easy.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing to recognize too, that when you work at it and then you're able to graduate and you feel confident in your what you've learned, that work becomes worth it. And it's the same way with any of our goals. It's hard because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be worth it. So when things get hard, I'm trying to remember that's okay. That means that I'm on the right path. I am learning something, I'm growing. Because if it wasn't hard, it just I wouldn't be growing. I wouldn't be accomplishing something above and beyond what I'm currently capable of.
I really like what you had said earlier about being more comfortable with failing. And that's a part of the journey. One of the classes that I'm really excited to learn from is someone was talking about their failed book launch and comparing it to a success story that they've had. And I think that's an exceptional thing to put out because that's vulnerable, but
Yeah.
also how impressive that we can learn from this author's mistakes so that we can do it differently.
Yeah. Is that a new one that's coming up?
It's called A Tale of Two Marketing Campaigns. It's by Jeremy Madsen. I it doesn't have the exact detail on which day it will be offered, but that is something that is going to be coming this year. So that one looks really good to me.
Would be a really good one to look at. Because that's in my future at some point. And the whole marketing thing for how do I sell this book now? I've got it.
Yes.
How do I sell it?
Yes. Yes.
Is daunting.
Those are two totally different skill sets
Mm.
because you're honing your skills as an author. You're learning about story arc. You're learning about like the pacing, your character development, the plot, and the inciting incident, all the different things of writing a story. There's so many components to it. And then marketing is also like a whole nother skill set that has to be developed. And it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. And so it's nice when someone's able to share their failures with us because then we can learn from that.
Yeah.
Like a moment, or was it like an image or a data or a personal experience that made you feel like you have to be a writer?
I don't know if there was a moment where I'm like, I have to be an author. I have to do this. I think I've always enjoyed telling stories.
Mm.
And I was just thinking about this that I think it was eighth grade. For whatever reason, eighth grade seemed to be this moment when some of this storytelling came together. I think it was the first year that I read my first fantasy novel. and I'd taken a creative writing class at the same time. My English teacher was really good, and we were doing some interesting things with telling our first short stories. But from then on, like I've always had these stories that I've been wanting to write and tell. And like I said earlier, that I had this one book that I tried to write for 10 years. And I would just start it, write it a little bit in, and then I'd have to start over because I'd learned something that changed everything. And so it's just been this constant growth of I enjoy telling stories, even if early on I was not good at it and couldn't get the story down, or I didn't know where it was going, and I just was just writing something. Now I've got a little bit of the craft down and making some progress on it. And I enjoy sitting down and just getting into the characters. And I think if I was to put a point on it of here's a moment where I'm like, I think I really enjoy doing this. I enjoy sitting down and writing the stories. I love it. Last year at LDSPMA, you and I both had booths. And as I would talk to people about Silent Earth, I'm like, I can do this. I love talking about the book that I wrote to people and telling them about it. I love it. I'm like, I can do this. And I don't know if all authors feel the same way about standing there and talking and pitching their stories. I found it exhilarating.
That's
So
awesome. I think authors we are a rare breed. I think we're most comfortable in front of our computers in a dark room and not necessarily in front of people. But it is like a different skill set to be able. I was actually just talking to Lisa Mangum of Shadow Mountain, and she was talking about like that ability to be able to pitch your book like whenever, wherever, to whomever is a skill set that also needs to be developed. And I feel like that's a part of the marketing. Like she was
yeah.
talking about once you have written all that you can, you've written to the best of your ability, it's time to put on another hat and to, okay, this is another skill set that needs to be developed.
In person, I think it's a lot easier. The
Sure.
digital side, like the marketing of getting of doing social media and getting eyes and attention on yourself, that is where I struggle a lot. Like social media has never quite made sense to me on what do I post and how do I draw the right kind of people and how do I make it not just a creativity suck so that I'm not spending time on my writing.
It's funny. I feel like, especially for those people that know me well. So I am working with Call to Create, the podcast of LDSPMA now, and I like my job responsibilities includes posting to social media. Which is really funny because that is not my forte. So I definitely am right there with you. But I feel like it's been good because this is a position that like I wanted and what volunteered for. And so it is forced me into a position of, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn how. And I have feel like it's one that I am reluctantly developing, but it's true. There are so many different aspects to this that requires being uncomfortable.
If you can become okay being uncomfortable, I think anybody can go far with that. They'll go far with whatever they're doing if they can become at least somewhat comfortable being uncomfortable. At least knowing that it's part of the expectation, like expecting that and knowing that this is going to be awkward, that I'm going to feel like I'm not doing it right for a while. And I might not be doing it right, and I'm going to learn. If we have that expectation, growth is inevitable at that point.
That's a really good point. I like it a lot. Do you feel like there is one
Okay.
thing you hope your readers will take away? Or does it depend on the book?
I think it depends on the book.
Let's talk about Silent Earth then. What's one
Okay.
thing that you hope your readers will take away?
My goal with Silent Earth was having hope,
Mm.
even in the face of utter catastrophe, of everything going, of worst case scenario, is choosing to have hope. Because choosing not to have hope is terrible. Allowing yourself to lose hope is terrible. And that was what I was trying to explore there. Shadows of Light, I'm exploring a different kind of theme where it's what kind of thought processes do you go through? How are you feeling when your faith is challenged?
Mm.
And when what you thought was true isn't serving you anymore?
Mm.
It's this faith crisis that the main character is going through. And I'm going to explore that hopefully through 3 books. The first book just takes us part of the way. And so it's that faith crisis of how do I reconcile what I've been taught with what I'm learning and how the world seems to be pushing me in a fantasy context. And then Escape from Jerusalem is the story of Nephi and Lehi. So it's going to be faith and trusting in the Lord and trying to pull out the little pieces that the Lord is doing in the background of our lives. Of this little thing, if this hadn't happened, this whole big thing wouldn't have happened, or it wouldn't have worked out this well. And we didn't realize that little piece was there early on, you know. And so it's those kinds of themes. But through it all, it's like realistic, in-depth people. Like these characters, I've really tried to make my characters deep and understanding and feel real. My my readers will have to tell me if I'm succeeding or not.
What a great goal. I feel like that's a great goal and is interesting. So now I have a story for you. A couple of months ago, I went to a speaker, great speaker. She had a really compelling story. After it, I was thinking there were so many themes that she was trying to weave in, and I wish that she had just focused on one of them. If I could have totally written it for her, the theme that I would have chosen for her is what do I do when what I have been brought up with, what I believe in, it is not working for me anymore. What do I do in that situation? And it sounds like you are dedicating 3 books to that theme.
Partially. So let me caveat that a little bit. That's
Okay,
the journey for the main character.
sure.
Each of the other characters, some of them are on a similar tangential theme,
Mm.
and some are not. And I think that's the beautiful thing about art, and especially story like this, where we have multiple characters in a book. Each are on their own journey, and each reader can pull something out that is impactful to them at that point when they're reading. I just finished a reread of Brandon Sanderson's Oathbringer. If you haven't read the Stormlight Archive, book 3 is one of my favorites. But in it, one of the main characters, he's on a different journey than the other 2 main characters in terms of his character arc. And where he lands in that character arc hit especially hard for me this time through because of the failures I had in trying to accomplish my goal this last November, December, and feeling like I hadn't made the progress that I wanted to. His character arc stood out to me much more this time. But I know that in the Stormlight Archive, a lot of other people latch on to Kaladin because he goes through this. He struggles against depression. This character does, and so a lot of people latch onto that, and he's their favorite character just because of the arc that he's going through. And as an author, even though we might have multiple themes going on, the readers are pulling out what they want, which is fantastic because then our art is being interpreted in different ways.
That's really true. And I totally agree with you. It's really cool while you're working in fantasy because you get to create the context and you get to create
Mhm.
everything around this character. What will help this character and what can also make it real, real hard for my character? And how is he or she going to overcome those things? And I think that can mirror our own lives. And I like what you were saying that it depends because each of your readers is bringing his or her own experiences, their own lens to the book. And so how each of them reads it is going to be different.
Yeah. That's what, when you're reading something at different points in your life, it's going to mean something different. That's art. I think that's the definition of art, is that it changes with you, the one who is consuming it.
Okay, let's continue to work on this definition of art because I also feel like it has to involve like a creation in some
Mhm.
aspect. How could we put both of those things together?
That it's a combination of the creator, the author, the artist, trying to express something that they're going through, possibly, but having the consumers or the readers interpreting it because in a different way because they're bringing something else, their own experience to that art. It's a combination of both the creator and the consumer bringing themselves to the art. What I'm trying to put into my stories is one thing, but a reader may get something different. Silent Earth, somebody may attach to one of the other characters, to Dr. Albert, because they have felt that they've lost everything, that it's their fault that they haven't done things. And they may have really attached to him and find him the most sympathetic character in the story. And that's fine. That means I probably did a good job with him as a character, that somebody else found him to be the more interesting and the more meaningful piece of the story rather than Neo, who's the main character.
Do you write yourself into characters or into your books?
Not intentionally, but I don't think I can help but put some of me into each one of them. They're all in some way an extension of me, even the bad guys. I'm just going to let my bad guy out here. They'll go play here. Too often I think we think of ourselves as too one-dimensional, and being an author lets me experience more dimensions of it. And it might be like, I really do not like this character that I've created, either because he's too close to me or because I really don't, I can see where I'm in him or her, and I don't like what they're doing. That character's going to go that far. I'm never going that far. But it's me, a little bit of me in all of them because I can't help it as much as I would try.
So tell us where we can find you.
So the best place is my website, philipgwhite.com. I'll remind everyone that it's only one L in Philip. The best way is to join my newsletter there. I'm getting back to sending out monthly newsletters again. That's the best place to find me, is my website.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep bringing your visions to life.